Good afternoon and welcome to GrainTV. My name is Cody. Today is Thursday the 3rd and we had the markets moving lower here today. Let's turn over to the grain hedge trading platform and see where we closed off the day. Corn trading down 6 cents on the December contract. Soybeans down 4.5 cents on the November contract, and wheat in Chicago here trading down 14 cents to $4.65 there on the December contract. Let's take a look at some of the headlines here that came across the news. First of all, you'll notice that Egypt Gas yesterday issued a tender for 55 to 60,000 metric tons. Basically, last week we saw Ukraine and Russia win the tender. This week we saw Russian wheat purchased by Egypt's gas in the amount of 340,000 metric tons. So another situation where U.S. wheat is just not competitive on the global market. Despite the declines here, U.S. dollar continues to remain relatively strong. U.S. wheat continues to move lower, but it doesn't seem to attract the kind of buyers here. We do know the Russian ruble has been trending lower here simply because they are very much reliant on crude oil and the price of crude oil on the global market, which has slipped here over the last few weeks. It has rallied back over the last couple of days, but still down when you look at it over like a 3-week time period. Now this morning we did have some nice export sales reported. These were reportable sales, which means they were over 100,000 metric tons. These were not included in this morning's export sales report, which can be kind of confusing, but you'll notice these were separate reported sales of 110,000 metric tons of soybeans to China for 15-16 delivery, and also 773,000 metric tons of soybeans to unknown destinations for new crop delivery. So very strong export sales there this morning in terms of new crop, and that was just reported. Now take a look here at the export sales report that came out. This comes out at 8:30 Central Standard Time. And you'll notice that old crop really wasn't all that positive for corn or soybeans. Corn did come in within analyst expectations, but nothing outstanding. Soybeans, we saw cancellations of 60,000 metric tons. Analysts were expecting anywhere from 150,000 metric tons of cancellations to 50,000 metric tons of sales. For both corn and soybeans, these were better sales than last week, but still not very good. When you look at wheat, you'll notice we sold 277,000 metric tons. That was on the low side of analyst expectations, so a little bit disappointing there. When you look at new crop, corn, again, disappointing with only 328,000 metric tons, well below the range of analyst guesses, which looked for anywhere between 500 to 700,000 metric tons. This is down from last week's new crop sales of 986,000 metric tons. So very disappointing there. New crop corn is really only 73% sold compared to the 4-year moving average of where we typically are. So we are behind pace for that new crop corn sales. When you look at soybean sales, they were outstanding this morning. They were 1.5 million metric tons. That was beating analyst expectations, which ranged from between 700 to 900,000 metric tons. This was higher than last week's sales, which were also very, very strong, of 1.4 million metric tons. So very strong there. New crop soybean sales are moving back in line with the pace needed to meet USDA expectations, but really only 79% has been sold compared to what we typically see sold during this time of the year when you look at the 4-year moving average. So new crop sales there still have a ways to go, but they were strong here for soybeans. You take that, you couple it with the reportable sales this morning, and that was a recipe for some support. You'll notice corn traded down lower than soybeans did here today. When you look at these cumulative export sales, old crop sales here, this is the last week of the marketing season. Next week will be the beginning of the, or at least the report next week will be the beginning of this new crop marketing year. You'll notice cumulative export sales for corn here came in at 47.4 million metric tons compared to last year, which was right around 48.6. And you'll also notice that we are a little bit behind pace to meet USDA expectations. The pace needed at this point in the marketing year was 48.4 million metric tons, so we are behind pace, and that's a bit disappointing. When you look at cumulative export sales for soybeans, we're right about on pace. We're a couple 100,000 metric tons behind what we would expect to see right around this time of the year. Cumulative export sales totaled to 50.6 million metric tons. What we'd expect to see right now is around 50.9. So nothing too outstanding there. But we come in, we meet analyst expectations for soybeans, but corn isn't really quite where we would expect it to be. Out today also was Informa's yield estimates. Basically what we saw is Informa coming out there increasing their corn yield by 3.4 bushels per acre from 165.4 bushels per acre in their last forecast to 168.8 bushels per acre in this forecast. So they are increasing their corn forecasts. They're now very much in line with that 168.8 bushels per acre reported by the USDA on August 12th. You'll notice FC Stone also increased their yield estimates, but not by nearly as much as Informa did. We'll have to see what the USDA does next Friday. That's when the next supply and demand report comes out. So make sure you pay attention to that. Keep that in mind as we move throughout next week in trade, because there will be people kind of situating and getting adjusted for that report. When you look at the yield forecast for soybeans, Informa increased their yield estimates from 45.4 bushels per acre up 1.6 bushels per acre to 47. So very, very strong yield potential there expected by Informa. And those both corn and soybeans here, I think both these yield forecasts really weighed on the markets. And when you look technically at corn, you'll notice that we are approaching the lows that we saw trade back on August 12th when the report came out. And I wouldn't be surprised if we test that and even possibly fall through those levels in the coming weeks. Other than that, guys, that wraps up today's show. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, please give the office a call. The number is 877-472-4607. Remember, if you haven't done so already, take a demo of our 14-day free trial. See what it's like to have a live quotes in the palm of your hand, be able to monitor positions on the go. Great marketing tool for this coming new crop. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you here on Friday for the weekly wrap-up.